but some of our podcast friends, they record the same week they release it, but that means
Yeah.
they've got to be there every week and can't avoid it. God, if I missed a week, I'd be gutted. I'd have to give up completely. No.
And actually, I'm often surprised with some of our podcast friends of how they do manage to turn the episodes around that quickly, because I definitely wouldn't be able to turn an episode around that quickly.
Well, I do know how they do it, though. They do it because they don't have to work with me. There's so little editing goes into theirs compared to my anything you got to do with me. And I make your life and Dave's life a hell.
Yeah.
Boo Foons, mystery investigators.
Off the case.
Welcome to Boo Foons, Off the Case. I'm Dan.
And I'm Steve.
And it's another Saturday.
One thing you probably will want to change eventually is me. Change out for a better model that takes less editing.
No, I would never change you.
Oh, that's good.
Well, did I tell you that I have been, I was offered the chance to betray you and go and work on another podcast.
You did.
And I turned it down because that person also expected me to edit all the social media and everything that I do for us. And when I found that out, I was like, no way.
Yeah. You'd have had to give this one up. And when it comes down to it, this is your podcast.
Well, it's both of us, really, isn't it?
Only when the month checks come rolling in.
Yeah. One day.
One day. Well, to be fair, we wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you.
True.
Yeah. It's amazing what you can do when you hold a knife to someone's throat and say, you're going to do a podcast with me or I'm going to kill you. I couldn't say no. You're very diplomatic, I've got to say.
No,
very hard to refuse an offer from Dan. Yeah, good thing you didn't want to sleep with me. That's the main thing. Because who knows what would have happened then.
One of our very first episodes is you basically saying that you dressed me up like the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man.
I don't know where that came from. That was just nerves. That was just
nerves. That's just you. People have come to realise now that that's just you.
I could just see your little sailor hat. Stomping around the little Hot Wheels cars. Yeah.
Well, as I've said, Ghostbusters. Well, have you ever experienced where you remember watching a film, you think that it was the greatest film ever, and then you rewatch it, and suddenly you go, one, this isn't the film I remember, and two, this is absolutely awful.
Do you know, I usually experience that when I try to show somebody a film that I've loved. And then I realise I spend the whole film worrying about it's not as good as I remember it being.
Yeah.
But I've still got... I love bad films. That's my thing, right? So I love bad films. Freddy Got Fingered, one of my favourite films of all time. And no matter how many times I see it, I still wet myself laughing like the first time because it's the most childish stuff. Yeah.
Daddy, would you like some sausages? Daddy, would you like some sausage?
It's so good. One of the greatest films ever. Absolutely, really is.
I was watching a behind the scenes thing with Tom Green not that long ago, where apparently the only reason Freddy Got Fingered was made was he became sort of very well known because of all the stuff he was doing on American TV, that this movie production company just threw a ridiculous amount of money at him and said, go and make a film. And he said, well, what about? And they said, it's your film. So therefore he decided what is the most bizarre, bonkers thing I can get away with and still get paid to do this? And thus, Freddie Got Fingered was the
So
result.
he made a film about an idiot blowing a fortune on the worst film ever, and
Yeah,
he himself was an idiot blowing a fortune on one of the worst films ever, and they didn't know what
yeah.
was happening. It was life imitating art and art imitating life.
Yeah.
It was perfect.
You said about showing people things and you've sort of watched it. I had that with, do you know the Adam Sandler film Little Nicky?
Yes.
Where I showed I had remembered that as being quite good, and I showed a few people it, and they sat there and they looked at me and went, "Well, that was crap," and I was like, "Yeah, I don't remember it as being. I remembered it being a bit better than that, and it was just purely that I remembered about 5 jokes from it that I thought were funny, and that was it." But no, I recently had an experience where I was sitting here at the weekend, wanted to watch a film, and I sat there to myself and went, you know what film I haven't watched since I was a teenager that I loved as a teenager? Um, Dude, Where's My Car? And I remember this as a teenager as being one of the funniest films ever made. To the point where I could quote lines from it. There were people around the period of me watching it, all new quotes from it, like the Chinese lady going, and then the whole bit with the tattoos where they're going, dude, what does mine say? Sweet, what does mine say? And I was like, I remember this film. It was brilliant. I'm going to watch it. And I sat and watched it the weekend and went, oh, uh, that was a bit crap.
Do you know, though, it was a massively successful film. It wasn't just you loving it. It was huge. Apparently, I think it made like nearly $80 million or $75 million of like a $10 million budget or something like that.
Hmm.
It was what would be now counted as a success. So you
Yeah.
weren't the only one who loved that film.
But you see, I
But
was thinking
going back and
about,
revisiting it,
yeah, I was thinking about this, and this is why I was like, let's chat to you, because I don't know, is it a case of I loved it because I was a teenager and now I'm a mature grown up? It's a case of that sort of thing isn't funny anymore. Is it that at the period of time you had a lot of other films like it, which is what it was mimicking the success of, things like American Pie? They were really big films, um, where
Bill and
they,
Ted, Ace Ventura, all those kind of things.
yeah. So is it that that was the humor of the time, so therefore you watched a film and that was the norm? Is it that the film industry has changed, so films are very different today to what they were? Is it that humor is different today? I don't know. Like,
I think it's all of the above. I think it's all of it.
yeah,
And you know, like I said, the more when you grow up, and you know, it's like you're tasting food. When you're a kid, you don't like vegetables. When you
yeah,
grow up, you're quite happy to eat vegetables. You know, your food. I didn't used to like eating fish. Now I can quite happily eat fish without any problems. But you grow. It's like you're tasting films. You're tasting TV. You're tasting music. It just grows and develops. You should always, I think, have that soft spot in your heart somewhere for that film. But sometimes, or food, or whatever it is. But just sometimes you just don't go back. I think I mentioned to you, it's like, you know, you can't go back to a place you once lived. If you've moved away, if you lived in a place, for example, I used to live in Southend for a while, and I loved Southend, all the things that were happening in Southend. And then I moved away. And then years later, when my kids were born, and I went with my mum and my wife and my kids, and we all visited Southend, I wanted to show them all the things I loved. It had changed so much. It just wasn't the place I remember or loved. I'd
yeah,
moved on. It had moved on. And it's the same going back to Harrow, where I grew up. It's just not anything like it was. And it's just to a point where I never want to go back. And I think sometimes it's best just not to go back. Things change. Things
yeah.
change. You change. Times change. Nothing stays the same. And I think it's the same with films and food and places and everything, really.
And then
Relationships with some people, of course.
yeah. And then the country bumpkin that's sitting here goes back to visit his family, and it's all
And
still,
it's still the same.
exactly the same.
It's still, you've got the same scarecrow in the field. Yeah. Hello, Mr. Scarecrow, you say as you walk past it. It was, yeah. Yeah, but
Yeah.
that it's only a matter of time before that all changes.
I will admit they have started to build houses and things in the area
Mm.
where, when I last visited, my mum was like, "Oh yeah, let's go to Co-op." I was like, "Co-op? That's a long drive away." Turns out there's now a Co-op where an old, I think it used to be a windmill or something like that. And there's now just a casual Co-op in the next village, and then you've got to go past all of these houses that used to be like a field, or there was some houses what used to be like a bungalow and that, and I was like, where did those houses
Yeah,
come
that's
from?
it. That's it. I mean, yeah, that's right. You drive past the field that would flood every year and think, oh, how's that housing estate on there now?
Yeah.
And it still floods every year. Yeah, I've seen those ones. But
Yep.
it's just so, yeah, it is. It's hard. I think when you live in a place, so you don't notice those changes happening. They happen so slowly, or maybe you see them as an improvement, or it just makes life a little bit easier. But going back and visiting, it's so hard to go back to a place you once lived and loved.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes it's best not to. It's best once you've made that cut, that break, is just don't go back. Always go somewhere new. Which is
Yeah.
why I've moved from Ruislip to Harrow to Southend, so South Harrow. It's back to Southend, back to South Harrow, and from there to Harrow again, then to Bedford, and then from Bedford to Plymouth. I just and in between all the other places I've lived in, because it's very hard to go back, and it's always nice to go somewhere new. But I know some people just don't like changes at all. But I think you've got to embrace change. Positive change, that is.
Positive change, yeah.
Positive change. And I think we've got to be careful not just to accept change just for change's sake. And we see that. The world is changing so fast at the moment.
Yeah, definitely.
In so many things. Like I watched that clip from America's Got Talent where this kid was dancing with like 12 robots. And it's like, hold a second, I thought robots couldn't stand up by themselves 5 years ago. And now they're doing martial arts and dancing on stage. So what has happened? How come this has changed so fast? It's just like, this is crazy.
Yeah, well, it's that whole rose tinted glasses idiom, isn't it?
Yeah.
Which is as old as humans are, because the Romans referred to it as memoria praeteritorium bonorum, which translates as memory of good past. Or, as we more commonly known it, the good old days.
The good old days. Yeah, the funny thing, it's really weird when I'm hearing my kids saying about the good old days now. And they would just look at you when you were an adult, when you were young parents and you would talk about the good old days. It's like, what are you talking about? And now it's like I'm 30. My daughter's gone 30. It's like all the things, her memories of now, things that happened when she was a kid, and she realized it was 30 years ago, 25 years ago, 20 years ago. And it's like we were watching Psych, one of our favorite TV shows and it's just the first episode's over 20 years old. And so we used to sit and watch that, and then suddenly you realize how much has changed, that you would sit and watch programs together as a family, and now they're 20 years old.
Yeah. Well, it's like watching Top Gear with the trio of Clarkson, May, and Hammond, and then them seeing them move on to Grand Tour.
Yeah.
And that last episode of Grand Tour, where I will admit I did cry. It's very emotional. And then now we're watching Clarkson's Farm, of Jeremy being a farmer as an old man, and Richard Hammond
heart problems. Yeah.
Yeah. Richard Hammond working in a little workshop restoring vintage cars, and James May doing all of the YouTube stuff that he does. Who would have thought that James May would end up being the
YouTuber? I love it. But it's like, but you don't want change, and this is why when they bring out the new series of Grand Tour with the new cast, no matter how good they are, people are going to say don't like it.
Well, if you think about Top Gear, like the original show was just
boring.
Here's a car. If you liked cars, then that was what it was. It was just, here's a car. This is a review of the car, and off we go. And then it was the trio with obviously Andy Millman as producer that made it exciting, made it engaging, engage
In
with
its
the audience
return,
in
yeah.
weird ways. And people were like, actually, we really like this entertaining stuff. So when the trio left, I think because it also wasn't ever a proper goodbye, it was on those rocky terms of Jeremy and the whole thing being fired from the BBC. When they brought it back with the new trio, although they were doing the same thing, I think that's the thing that did destroy it, is it felt like they were trying too hard to be Jeremy, James, and
Yeah.
Hammond. It was like they were trying to be them instead of being their own people and putting their own twist on it. That's what ended up making that end, because they didn't change it to suit themselves.
No, it was bad casting. And yeah, they got their idea wrong because BBC didn't understand what audience liked. It was their relationship. This is why they could do whatever stupid things they wanted to do, and it had nothing to do with cars. It didn't matter that you had people wanted just to watch them.
Yeah,
But they didn't get together any cast of people wanted to watch. Nobody was really interested in the cars or the stunts. It was just watching those two arse around, or those three arse around. That's all you wanted to see. And that's why Grand Tour worked so well.
yeah.
Because it was the same thing. And I think that's why all their other projects, because they're still the same silly old men they were.
Well, talking about change and things in the past, I've sort of got a mini mystery.
It's a Boo Foon. Mini mystery.
Basically, rose-coloured glasses, which is also called rosy retrospection. So
Is that the same as beer goggles?
I love you, mate.
Is that what? Yeah, that's the one. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sure he didn't look like that last night.
Well,
You look like Brad Pitt last night, Dan. What's happened?
I always look like
Beer
Brad Pitt.
goggles. Yeah.
So
Sorry,
we all know that there is this thing where we call it rose-coloured glasses, rose-coloured goggles, where we look back at things and it's always very positive. The past was always a lovely thing, the nostalgia thing of, oh, isn't it wonderful? There was research that's taken place on, is this an actual thing? So rose-coloured glasses, this whole looking back in the past with the positive image, is it actually a thing, or do we just say it as soon as an old person or somebody goes, it was so much better when we were younger? Or so some researchers tracked people on holiday. So they interviewed people before they went on holiday, they interviewed them during the holiday, and they interviewed them after the holiday, and then they interviewed them a long time after the holiday to see what they said. And they found that talking to these people on holiday, the researchers found a very, very common pattern. Beforehand, people had incredibly high expectations of the holiday. That the holiday was going to be the best thing ever, the best holiday they've ever been on. They were excited. During the holiday, they would experience a lot of disappointment. For example, things such as delayed flights, bad weather, the hotel is a little bit not very nice as the pictures. They were expecting a swimming pool at the hotel, and actually it's more like a paddling pool, and all of these things. During the holiday, they would feel a bit disappointed. And then after the trip, they would look back at everything and they would see it much more favourably. So go, wow, wasn't that an amazing trip? What a brilliant trip. That was the best trip I've ever been on. So they noticed that. They then noticed that when they spoke to them weeks and months later, that actually there was a more It became even more and more positive. So the holiday, the longer apart they interviewed them, the better the holiday was, the more positive it was. So suddenly, those disappointments, those little negative things, which throughout the holiday they were feeling, they all seemed to vanish. And with the memory, they started to notice that people, even if they were delayed and they were really annoyed because the flight's delayed by 3 hours and they're having to sit there waiting for the flight, people sort of forgot those things and remembered that they went on a flight. They read an interesting book or something and then got there and, oh, yeah, it was lovely. Now, what they did also notice as part of this, there is actually a blue counterpart where if you feel extreme negative emotions, interestingly, in a similar thing, so if you're expecting something bad to happen and then actually it's all right and then afterwards you end up sort of going, well, that was horrible. So interestingly, they have found there is a negative version of it, the blue thing. And they've started to look at people. Is there a difference? And what they've found is if you are an extroverted type of person, you're more likely to lean towards the rose-colored glasses in life naturally. So even if you're experiencing negative things and could fall into the blue retrospective, actually you're more likely to end up sort of seeing it as a positive or a reflection of, actually, although that was horrible, that was all right. And they found that neurotic personalities and adolescents who are going through hormonal shifts and changes due to puberty are more likely to lean towards the blue retrospection and will tend to slip more towards the blue bias, the negative bias, than the positive. So there we go. There's there's a bit of a mystery of there's
How
this
the
thing.
brain works. But you know what? I think it is, isn't it? It's those positive feelings for a lot of people do grow because the positive feelings are always a lot stronger because you want to remember those. You want to remember the good parts of, dude, where's your car? Because they made you laugh. You'll forget about the bad parts of it a lot easier because what didn't leave such a positive mark. And I think that's the same with experiences, isn't it? One of the things I tell you what makes me think of there is women and childbirth, right? The pain women go through and all the stuff they go through for childbirth, and they often forget that almost straight away as soon as they have the baby in their arms, to a point where they go from I will never do this again and I will kill you if you touch me to a few months later, let's do a baby again. Let's have more kids. Because though that positive experience outweighs all the indignities and the pain and the suffering and inconvenience and the hot sweat, the extra weight and the stretched skin and the heat and the carrot, all that misery for months. But as soon as the baby appears, and then that becomes the feeling that carries on for vast majority, which is how you end up with people having more children. Because honestly, with that experience, you would think people would say never again. Once is enough. If you've been there, if you've been there and you've seen it, you would say never again if that was me. But those feelings disappear. All that negative experience goes, and it's just like now all we do is talk about the first time we held our first child in our arms, and it's like the feeling that gave. That was such, and it's that kind of thing. I think that's how you have to progress in life, isn't it? You can't but some people do. I know some people keep the bad memories. They love it. They love to keep everything a drama and everything's got to be painful and misery. But I think the majority of us keep those good feelings longer.
Yeah. Well, interestingly, you've sort of skirted around why. So psychologists and neuroscientists, you've sort of skirted around there as to why they think this happens. So partly that, like you said, the brain chemistry. So they've actually done MRI scans on the brain whilst people are recalling information. And they've found that if you're asked to remember something, the brain's critical analysis centers actually quiet down, whilst the reward areas actually light up. So hippocampus, which is for memory, and the amygdala, which is the emotional center, actually team up to give priority to the positive emotional memories that come up. So you're more likely to remember the positive things due to natural brain chemistry. It's also to do with memory storage and the mental efficiency. So with the holiday sort of story and the research that was there, basically when you remember things, you remember the important information. So therefore you're more likely to ignore the minor bits, the irrelevant details. So you're more likely to forget about the fact that you were sitting in the airport for 3 hours waiting for your flight, because it's not actually an important part of the holiday. The important part of the holiday was being there and experiencing it. So actually the brain is more likely to go, yeah, we don't need that. So because the brain sort of strips down to the important bits to put it into the long term, that's another reason why you remember the positive or the extreme negatives if it's the blue version, because it just takes the important bits. And it's also about, funny enough, self-esteem and evolution. So forgetting the bad and highlighting the good actually serves as a psychological purpose by boosting our self-esteem and our general sense of well-being. So it encourages us to repeat necessary but difficult behaviors like social bonding, exploration, child rearing, by making us forget how unpleasant that experience was at the time, and only focuses on the positive. So that's why psychologists and neuroscientists actually think we actually see things in a positive light when we look back and have these rose tinted glasses.
Yeah. So with that mixed in with a good sense of fear, keep us alive and keep us progressing.
Yes.
Because they're two important emotions: pleasure, happiness, positivity, and fear of the things we should be scared of.
Yeah.
I guess once you get those two things sorted out in your mind, you can evolve quite happily.
Yeah. So this is actually used as a marketing ploy as well, and by shops and things to try and keep consumers loyal. So they actually focus on the making the purchase seem like the most exciting, best thing possible, making you more likely to buy from them again. So that could be through using nostalgic branding. So when people use the retro logos and things, that's why they do it, because it makes you go, oh, I remember that when I was a kid. I'll buy that. Or they sort of try and get into things of, at the time giving you a big discount or giving you a reward, like here's a cup of coffee whilst you shop, or those sorts of things, because it then makes your brain go, I really liked being in that shop. That was really lovely. So I'm going to go there again. So actually shops use these this psychological condition to actually get you to go back again.
Yeah, bastards, eh?
Which is why Amazon works, because it focuses on
the prices down.
It comes quickly. Like, that's Amazon's thing of it arrives quickly.
That's what she said.
So you end up going, oh, I'll buy from them again because it'll be here tomorrow.
Yeah. Yeah, I must admit, it does. It's easier to do that than it is to go out to the shop and hope you find it. Walking around all the grumpy people, and you find out that they don't have it in stock anyway.
And then that's the bit that you remember, and you end up going, oh. So the other thing that they think it comes down to is survivorship bias. Funnily enough, it actually comes from the Second World War. Their aeroplanes were coming back, and they were armoring where all the bullet holes were, so then they didn't get bullet holes in those areas again. And then somebody eventually pointed out, hang on a minute, these are planes that are returning to us. So clearly it's okay for those bits to be shot because the plane can still get back to us. If we put more shielding around the areas that don't have the bullet holes, they're the planes that have sunk and crashed.
Good
and then
point.
they so that's where the survivorship bias started. That's where they realized it and started to research it a lot more, was based on the statistical errors of looking at the entities that have passed the selection process. They actually think that part of the rose tinted glasses is because you survived that period of time and it was a very positive experience for you. Therefore, that period of time was an amazing, wonderful period of time because there was no negatives to it. However, there are people that will remember that same experience as a very horrible time, possibly not
Yeah.
even surviving it.
I mean, that's the thing, isn't it? You remember something from when you were a kid, and it's because you were a kid. You were most children were protected from stuff. They were protected from the strikes. They were protected from everything was fun. If the lights went out, if you had good parents, it became an adventure. They were the ones who were stressing about it. They were the ones who were fed up about it. They didn't. I know when we were younger, they didn't tell us about what was happening in the world. We didn't have the internet or the news, so we weren't aware of it. We just knew it was kids and everything was an adventure. The house flooded. Everything had to be destroyed and thrown away and rebuilt. But you know what? It was an adventure. Still remember riding up and down in the flood water. But yes, I think being protected when you're a kid, that's why we all have these, again, just a generalization. We have these great memories from being kids. I know that some people have got awful memories from being kids, but generally, the majority of people had really good memories, and they talk about it being the best time of their lives. Also, school. The amount of times people say school, oh, it's the best time of my life. I think for a start they're liars, because guaranteed everybody hated it, but you're just remembering those good parts, and you're thinking about it with today's brain. If I went back to school now, know what I knew, go back to school now, knowing what I know now, it would be a whole different thing. With the experiences, but what was a miserable experience becomes a great experience.
Well, it's that idiom, isn't it, of the youth is wasted on the young.
Yes.
It's a Boo Foon mini mystery.
Theme of changes. Are you trying to tell me something? You're not planning on changing the presenter, are you?
No.
No, okay, that's right. Then I just saw, sometimes people drop in a subtle hint that isn't very subtle.
No, I'll just tell you. No, it's one of those things of, like you said, I was just thinking about me watching a movie the other day, and then was like, what's happened there to cause this? And then obviously it leads into lots of interesting discussions about change and stuff. And sometimes change is positive, sometimes change is negative. Change is scary, and sometimes rightly so. Sometimes it's a good thing.
But there's also things like, I mean, like I say, in the real world, we're talking, the big, all at the moment, AI this, AI that. The fear of AI, it's going, well, the fear of AI is it's going to be given too much control in certain places. It's going to be making decisions where it shouldn't be making decisions because it's stupid. And it's never going to last. People have been losing their jobs because of AI. The job market is shocking. And I think people replacing people with AI, people are replacing employees with AI and paying 5 times more, 10 times more for the AI. And all the AI does is confirm what they think already. So you got confirmation bias. Doesn't argue with the managers and doesn't produce anything that's actually correct unless you have something specialized for a particular task. And I think I've heard that recently, though, the change to AI, some organizations are changing back. They're actually getting rid of their AI. It's cost them so much money. It's not good. And they're actually rehiring staff to do the job that they sacked the staff to replace with AI. Things sometimes changes come and people overreact. And I think AI is a great example of people overreacting to something. And the over significance of something which is just it's going to work in certain niches, but that's it. You're never going to be able to replace your workforce. And if you do, you're going to be out of business.
Yeah, well, I did see that there are, the big supermarkets. There's currently a few shops, mainly in America at the moment, who are actually getting rid of self-service and bringing humans and cashiers back. And it's all to do with, like,
Shoplifting.
well, that is one factor. However, the main factor is the fact that people have started. So, yes, obviously, people are stealing things that cost things. Like if you get two items that weigh the same amount, so, a litre of milk, which is what, a litre's a kilogram, isn't it?
Yeah.
For example, and that the litre of milk costs more than, costs less than a kilogram of items that's all smaller. You can scan the milk, put a kilogram of items on the counter instead, and it's like, yep, cool, that was milk. So yes, there is loss and obviously a big expense there. However, it's also to do with the fact that people have ended up going, well, fair enough, I'm not going to bother shopping with you because I'm not going to see a human, so I might as well do it online, which has ended up putting more demand on shops because they're now having to do everyone's shopping for them to then get delivery people to send it to them. So DoorDash being the big one in America. They get it, so they're then getting annoyed that they're then having to employ people to go and do the shopping for the delivery people, and it's actually costing them more money than the cashiers did because they need more staff than the cashiers at the till. So that's another thing. So they've actually realized that this whole self-service that was supposed to save money has actually ended up costing them far more money. Because they're having to employ more people and have to cover shoplifting fees. So there
this
are
whole
actually
thing, though. This whole thing of businesses cutting staff to save money is insane because where's the thought in their heads? If we don't pay anybody to do this work, then all our customers will be so much easier. It'll be so much easier for our customers. No, you won't have any customers because nobody will have. At the moment, your staff who you're paying are spending a lot of their money in your shop.
Yeah.
If you get rid of your staff, then they haven't got the money to spend, and they're definitely not going to spend it in your shop when they do get some. It's just there's a false economy here of let's cut staff. We'll get worse service, but at least we won't have to pay the people. And you know what? They strike. They smell. They want to be paid. They want to have food. We don't like them. It's like, no, actually, these are your customers. They're not just your employees. These are your customers. These are your family, your friends, and your customers. And it's just, there seems to be, with business, a total disregard at the moment with people, with humans. Actually, not just business, it's everywhere.
Well, do you follow Rory Sutherland at all?
No. I used to watch Donald Sutherland. He was in the Hunger Games.
Basically, he is a researcher who has spent lots of time looking at psychology, sociology, how people's brains work, all for advertising and promoting companies. So he has spent his life basically learning how to advertise to people and how to get people to shop with you and get more custom, essentially. He has been paid a ridiculous amount of money by various companies to basically improve their sort of marketability. So one of his things that he talks about is he was paid by KFC to get more custom. So you know how KFC, how it costs. Basically, he said, put your money up and people will see it as a luxury. KFC went, well, that's ridiculous. That's not going to work because people come to us because it's fast food and it's cheap. They put their money up. People then started seeing KFC as a premium product and a higher chained fast food chain. And then more people started going. So basically, he applies psychology and sociology and behavioral sort of science to marketing.
Well, I can tell you that from when I used to freelance, if my prices were low, people didn't want to pay for it, but they would go with a company that charged a lot more because they saw it as a more premium service, even though they weren't getting it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, he's written loads of books about this, and I find it fascinating because I find the human brain an interesting thing. And with what you were saying a few moments ago about businesses and how they view people, he has a concept that he has coined called the Doorman fallacy. So what he explained, and it's all about the companies in that blind pursuit of cutting money and making it efficient, replacing humans with automation, streamlined services. And it ends up destroying hidden values. So he calls this the Doorman fallacy and compares it to a 5-star luxury hotel. So essentially, management of the hotel, they look at spreadsheets, they see the fact that the doorman at the hotel has one job, one function of open the door and close the door. And that's how the management at the spreadsheet see it. And they go, right, we can get rid of all of the doormen of our hotel chain and replace that door opening with an automatic sensor, and it will save us thousands in salary costs of that doorman. And thus, doormen are all get rid of. People walk up, the doors automatically open, they close behind them. However, what they then start noticing is people don't stop rebooking to go to that hotel. They lose custom. They start noticing other patterns where it's now becoming dirtier. It's not as nice there. People are now saying that they don't like the hotels anymore. And it's because what the spreadsheet and what the management, who have just seen figures and of a person and money, they haven't realized that the doorman, yes, is opening and closing the door. It's also they're also hailing taxis for guests. They're helping guests carry luggage, possibly up the stairs as they approach. They're discouraging vagrants and horrible people that might be coming up to, make the place look dirty. They're possibly picking up bits of rubbish and litter that have been thrown on the floor outside. They're recognizing people that stay at the hotel regularly. They're providing a welcome of, hello, welcome to the hotel. Come inside as they're opening the door. And therefore, people then see, even just that hello, see, this is a premium hotel. So what's ended up happening is they've actually lost a huge thing that customers loved, and a huge part of the hotel that made that hotel look fancy, feel fancy, bring the customers in, is something there that is a positive for the hotel, and they've got rid of it in cost-cutting measures. That's what he calls the Doorman fallacy, and it is noticeable across several things. And he has recently said that it applies to AI, that companies have got rid of customer service staff with the AI voice robots, which I hate so much. And instead, while the robot is trying to handle these routines efficiently, it doesn't read the context, it doesn't show genuine care, and people end up going, it's an annoying robot, and hang up. I'm not shopping with this company anymore. I'm going elsewhere. So, he's a very interesting man that talks about things like that. There you go. Does that count for this is the interesting segment of today's episode?
Possibly. Yeah.
I find it interesting.
It is very interesting. It is. But I think the thing is, obviously, people who make those decisions, who want to make those changes, they don't talk to the customers. They don't talk. They don't care. It's just, how can we save money?
I think we're running out of steam there, and also it's getting late.
Yeah, bedtime.
Yeah. But then some people are probably listening to this first in the morning. So, good morning. It's Saturday.
I listen to go to sleep. I listen to my own podcast to go to sleep. That's how sad. Does anybody else listen to their own podcast to go to sleep with?
Don't know.
It's really bad when it sends me to sleep.
Definitely not our friends, the bantering banshees. Definitely not them. As we learned, they are yin to our yang.
We need to get them back on.
Oh, we do. And that's been another episode of Boo Foons Off the Case. Hope you've enjoyed today's episode. These episodes are always a little bit different. To be honest, we never really know where they're going. We sort of start these little chats and then we go off on our usual tangents of us being us. And then it's in the edit where we then start going, actually, maybe not. And that bit, yeah, we'll keep that. And then let's put this bit in that was cut out of another episode. Let's just stick that in.
Genius, that's what I say, genius.
Yes, genius. This is like
Genius.
Frankenstein, because this is the ones where you don't know what you're going to well, not Frankenstein, but Frankenstein's monster. You don't know what you're going to expect. And to be honest, I don't know what we're going to get until this is edited together, because there'll be bits that I'm like, oh yeah, we'll chuck that in.
Yeah. I always enjoy listening to it. That's the main thing, because by the time I listen to it, it's like it's so different. I don't remember anything.
Yeah. And then I always listen to the sign off at the end and I go, wow, I actually sounded more professional than what I thought I did when I was recording that.
Yeah. Bye. I'm going. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yes. Or sign off again. There we go.
And now he's gone. Do look at our social media accounts. Give us a like, a share. Do put a comment down there. Let us know what you're thinking of these episodes, or just say something witty. And if you want bonus content, do look at our Patreon, especially if you're feeling very generous and you might want to give us some money to help support the running and the costs of the show. So join us Wednesday for an interesting episode of another mystery, something from the unknown. Join us next Saturday for one of these random episodes where you don't know what you're going to get. Is it going to be stupid? Is it going to be funny? Or is it going to be more serious and sensible? Or is it going to be like today's episode where it's two men ranting about the past and sounding like grumpy old men of, back in my day, we didn't have this happening.
And you're 30.
Yeah, but look, all these grey hairs.
You're in your 30s. Again, you didn't have that until you started working with me. Have you noticed? If you go back to the first episode, you didn't have any grey hair.
That's because in the first episode, I had a skin fade, so it was all cut back. Yeah, I've been going alarmingly grey. It's almost like the moment I hit 30, my body went, right, we're getting old now. Yeah, I'm pretty certain I woke up the day after my 30th birthday and suddenly it was, bosh, now you've got to start looking like you're in your 50s.
At least there's no baldness there yet.
No, not yet.
Not yet.
And hopefully never. And on that note, bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Boo Foons, mystery investigators.
Off the case.